I grew up in a Christian family, so I've known of Jesus my entire life, but I didn't really have a personal relationship with him until much later in my life. And so I would say before Jesus, I was very alone. And I tried to control everything in my life, and I was really the only person I could trust. In my family, my friends, it didn't matter. I was just by myself a lot of the time, and I chose to be that way.
Before I met Jesus, I was lost. I was living day to day without a purpose. I was depressed. I was anxious. I didn't know where I was going, and I didn't feel like I belonged anywhere.
I grew up in a Christian household, but I didn't know Jesus at all, and so I was very self-absorbed and very lonely and isolated, and I really felt so lost, and I had no idea who I was before, and I really relied on other people's opinions about me, and I just was a very insecure person who did a lot of things to please other people.
Because I was very afraid. I was very sad and depressed and didn't know how to express that with people, and so I would express that through just being alone, playing video games, doing whatever else it may be, and then later on in life, I became addicted to pornography, and that stuck with me for a very long time and really tore at my identity, tore at who I was as a man, as a Christian, and I just felt so much shame and condemnation every day from what I thought everyone else, but realistically it was myself being the biggest offender. I was just so hard on myself. I hated myself. I hated the way I looked, I talked, and just the way I lived life. And I know how much the enemy was trying to get at me with these things. And so it took about 20 years to get out of this place of just feeling depressed and alone. But then I met Jesus and heard his voice and really experienced the true love of God, and it changed my life.
The most difficult part about missions would be holding back myself. I tend to let my insecure thoughts hold me back from really expressing myself and talking to people in evangelism especially.
All the lies that the enemy tells me, just really trying to not let that get to me and really just focusing on the truth that God tells me. He tries to bring back things from my past, or he tries to bring up new things or comparison, and that's been the biggest struggle for me, is not feeding into those lies.
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge of missions is actually the best part as well, and that's relying on God. And what I mean by that is that by relying on God, you are faced with your own weakness every single day and faced with your own problems and challenges, and that's for me what the biggest challenge is every day I want to walk out and do what God wants, and I see people who don't have what I have, but yet have so much joy, and I feel like God is trying to refine me every single day and make me the person that he's created me to be. And so with that, it's an amazing experience, and I feel like I've grown so much. But being in the mission field, you are confronted with that daily and just asked to humble yourself daily. And I think that has been a challenge, to constantly see your own weakness, but at the same time, it's just amazing to see how God's grace is so much bigger and sufficient, and I'm just so thankful for him every single day, and I'm made new.
I have learned to trust God in everything, in big and little things. Like, I had to go up to a man in his 30s and tell him that his marriage needs to be to have the foundation as God, and it was super awkward, but it really touched him, and I've learned that God will tell you to do things that seem so weird and so random to you, but they have such purpose, and he can really speak to you, and I just learned to just have so much faith in God. So
missions has really changed my heart, not just for people, but for myself too. It's really taught me to have grace and love for myself and really walk in the freedom that God gives us. And it's just a super helpful reminder that God always loves us. God always loves you.
Missions has changed my life in so many more ways than I can express. I was first introduced to missions when I was 14 years old in Jamaica. I've been there 4 times now, but that first time I really was able to see God in a different place other than my own. I saw people who had nothing filled with so much joy. And I got to experience different culture. I got to see the beauty of how God is in so many different places. And so I think being in Jamaica for just a week sparked such a curiosity of the nations and such a beauty of who God was. And this is something I desired too. I saw people who were desiring God and wanting relationship with Jesus. And I was realizing myself, I didn't truly have that as well. And so that made me want to desire it. And I think that has really sparked a life of traveling for God, doing missions for God, really being available for Him, no matter what that looks like. I didn't expect to be here in Brazil. If you would have asked me 5 years ago, I would not have expected anything of my last 5 years. But God is so good, and I think I've experienced just so much of God's beauty in creation, so much of God's beauty in people. I've been shown so much hospitality, so much love. And I feel like as I go out to bless and serve God, it really has blessed me more and served me more every single time, no matter where I go.